I'm just looking forward to this game. A lot of people are hating on me for my prediction because I think Florida State, based off of the conversations that I've had with some of these guys, uh, this is a game they're going to make a statement on. They're about to go absolutely wild come Saturday because now the narrative is if Riley plays for Duke, which is the quarterback, if he plays, Florida State probably not going to win this game. And there's a lot of people picking Duke to win if this guy plays. And if he doesn't play, the narrative will be, well, they didn't play the best Duke team. They didn't have their quarterback. So I'm hoping that this kid's there. I'm hoping that he's fully 100% back. I hope he can run like a horse. I hope that everything's good because I want to beat them at their best, and that's what Florida State wants. But everybody's getting on me about my prediction because I've got us winning 42-10 against Duke, and everybody thinks I'm absolutely crazy because of it. But if you would hear the coaches and hear these Florida State players talk, I'm just forewarning people. There's going to be no mercy given in this game from Florida State.
Yes, we have all this experience, but like you said, a lot of them, they got all their experience elsewhere. This is still a brand new team. You still took 12 guys, from the portal and different things, guys like Keziah Holmes, who you took last year, who's now up into the roster, Ayobami Tufase, who wasn't available last year, things like that. This is a team that is coming together and tons of different moving parts. You bring Keon Coleman, and he's immediately kind of your number one guy on offense. Those things take time. The running game has come together. Like, if they were going to get Florida State, that time has passed. Like, and that's the thing that, like you said, it's crazy that, there's always these different excuses and things, but Mike Norvell has methodically planned this thing, from the rotations to on the defensive line and with the corners, from the rotation at linebacker and the different guys, the different reps he split amongst the running backs that people may get aggravated about, and the different things, plays, wildcat runs that he plays that now Duke has to prepare for.
Yeah, Hakeem is going to be really special. I think he already is special to the point of that he's a redshirt freshman, and y'all seen just how good he was on off of his acceleration, how he is at getting people to miss. But Hakeem is one of the first 5-star wide receivers that Florida State's been able to get out of recruiting, and we'll just say quite some time. It's been a while, and Coach Dugans did a phenomenal job with getting him here. But what he gives most praise to, other than Coach Dugans and Norvell, for putting them in the right situations, training them the way that they need to be on all the fundamentals, and really getting them to all understand their routes and the playbook well. He gives the guys ahead of him, like Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Portier. He gives all of them a huge shout out to what he's able to achieve because of how these guys work with each other outside of practice, what they continuously talk about. They go over the plays. All of them have the playbook as far as what they need. They all go over what they're supposed to be doing in plays as far as blocking or what route they're running. Are they the ghost route? Are they the hot route? Whatever the case may be. And he gives them a lot of kudos for why he is improving as fast as he is. We already knew he was a raw talent, that he was going to be, a really good wide receiver here at Florida State. But as all high school players that come in, a lot of them never have a playbook, even in high school. It's a lot like, hey, run a go route or hit a dig or this, that, or the other. They're not really told, in specifics, where they want the cut at, what formation it is when you're on a bunch formation, et cetera. The different things. So it's a lot for these young guys to learn in just a spring and fall session of learning the playbook. But he said if it wasn't for his teammates, he would have never caught on to the plays as quick as he did. But because of them, it's getting him in the games early, and he really appreciates everyone at Florida State for working with him to get him in as quick as he has been able to get in.
George, anything on Hakeem Williams?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, just an absolute stud to be a true freshman and start getting them reps early on and to finally get that big touchdown catch and for it to be like a 30, 40 yard or whatever it ended up being. Florida State kind of has this history of big time playmakers and players that go on to be these, kind of guys like Jordan Travis that end up in the record books. Their first kind of snap, either their first snap or their first touchdown play, ends up being one of these plays. You go back in history and it's just kind of something that happens. Like Jordan Travis against Boston College gets that first snap and just takes it to the house for a 40, 50-yard touchdown. And that's kind of, the first thing I thought when I see him do that, just a kind of another guy in a long line of great Florida State wide receivers. And you're seeing that athleticism just get to that next level, and starting to see the high school guys come in and take off. And it's just a testament to this staff, like Chris said, and what Dugan's has been able to do with this wide receiver core and to just get it rolling through the past couple of years and moving towards the future. It's bright. It's very bright, and we're set for years to come with guys like Hakeem Williams.
Now, Florida State's the better team. There's no question about that. It's not debatable. They're decidedly the better team, but they certainly cannot take this team lightly.
The Florida State coaches have been really, really instilling into the game plan is this is a team that you can get up on, quite handsomely. Like we could be up 21-0 on them. And you've seen where at times our defense has started to kind of chill out. They'll kind of relax and they'll let teams score on them or, get back into the game on them. So it's been really, really, spoke on at a high measure that this team, while they might not have, 8 5-star athletes on the field, they're one of the most disciplined teams that we'll probably face ever, not just this year, but ever. They don't make a lot of mistakes defensively, if any. You don't see blown coverages. Their guys are always where they're supposed to be. They know how to stay at home. It's because they're extremely disciplined. They don't commit a lot of penalties on defense either. The only way that you cause them to make mistakes on offense is by getting enough pressure on their quarterback. And, I mean, as far as ball security goes from their running backs, they don't hardly ever let a fumble up. They don't give the ball up. They are very, very disciplined, and you can lose to a disciplined team. You can be very talented, but if you play like Clemson did against them, if you make those mistakes, that's what that team thrives off of. They are a team that they're waiting to help you make a mistake so that they can get the momentum, and that's what feeds them is the momentum of the mess ups from the other team. So you have to do a really good job at playing a clean game with Duke and not making those mistakes, because that's what I think this is what Duke is probably, if there was a way to measure it, if there was a ranking to do it off of, Duke would be ranked number 1 off of making teams pay for their mistakes. They do a wonderful job of it. They know how to make teams pay for it, and they make sure they get points off of other people's mistakes. So it's something that Florida State's going to have to pay attention to, and, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. When you're carrying the football, make sure you're securing it with both hands. When you're catching the football, I guess unless you're Keon Coleman jumping 8 feet in the air, make sure you get 2 hands on it. Also, don't hold on to the ball too long in the pocket, because they while they're not the greatest athletes that we've ever seen, their schemes and their schematic on defense as far as how they bring pressure, I'm going to say it, man. Elko is a hell of a defensive mind, and the way he's got these guys playing it's second to none. I think that with the schemes that he's bringing, and I think we're going to see some things that we haven't seen from Duke yet. They want this game. They want to win it. They need to win it, because, like you just said, Mark, if they lose this one, it's their first loss in ACC conference play. It's not that you're completely out of it at that point, but with the way that Florida State and North Carolina are playing, you got very small, place of you don't have many margins to where you can slip up. So Duke's going to want this game badly, and I don't think it matters who their quarterback is. They're going to come out and give us the best possible game that they got. And Florida State has to make sure that if it is Riley, that we keep him contained as much as possible. And I think with playing against LSU with Daniels, because I think Daniels is more athletic than Riley is, also faster. We were able to contain him very well in the second half. You game plan them similar to what you did with LSU, other than the fact that I think that their wide receiver group is, while not great, I think they're very efficient. They're consistent. They consistently get the move, the sticks. So we got to be really careful with what we're doing. Keep the ball in front of us. Don't allow the big play, and take care of the football. And you win this football game if you play a clean game.
This Duke football team, I've spit out these facts about 18 times just because I think they're pretty remarkable. That prior to Mike Elko, this program had lost 17 of 18 games in the ACC. And then he takes over. They not only go 9-4 and win a bowl game, but I think even beyond that, they didn't get blown out. So a lot of coaches will take over a program, do a really nice job upgrading the program, but you can still see where there are some serious cracks. And if they play anyone significant, they're getting blown out of the water, even if they are able to elevate, let's say, to an 8-win season. But in this case, Duke loses all of its games by one score. They come within basically a drive, a penalty of defeating North Carolina to get to the ACC championship game. It was really a remarkable turnaround for a guy that had never been a head coach at this level. So just first of all, your thoughts about Mike Elko.
Yeah, you kind of have to remind yourself sometimes that Mike has not been a head coach before, and it speaks to the guys that kind of pay their dues along the way, the guys that are as smart as Mike is and have worked their ways up. He was, he'll be the first to tell you his first job was at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. So he's paid his dues. He's worked his way up, and he's just kind of, you can see how he's pulled from different stops along the way, some different lessons to be learned. Like, he's at Wake Forest for 3 years. He learned the ACC. He was at Notre Dame for a year. He learned a big-time national program. He was at Texas A&M for 4 years. That's another big-time national program. And it's big-time SEC West football. So there's something to be said for a guy who picks up those kind of lessons along the way, life lessons, coaching lessons, and then the second part of it is what has happened. He's applied them all. He's put them to use and put his contacts to work to hire the right people, and it's really paid off.
And to do it with somebody else's roster. This isn't 2 or 3 years down the road where he brought in a ton of transfer players, which I know that he worked on that as well, and that was part of the equation. But of course, the recruiting classes have yet to take hold. So it's just a masterful job by him. They defeat Clemson, of course, on opening night, and they're a 4th down play away from being undefeated on the season, of course. And Notre Dame barely slipped by Duke. So your thoughts before we get to the injury matter at hand that's on most people's minds and is key to this game. Just your thoughts about why this team has achieved beyond Elko in terms of the players on the field, why this has been such a huge success to start out 2023.
That injury you're asking about is Nicky Dalmolin, the starting tight end, right? Like, that's where we're going with that.
Well, absolutely. Of course it is.
No, it's a roster that, Riley Leonard started a game as a true freshman in 2021, that year that Duke was non-competitive in 7 of 8 ACC games, lost the opener at Charlotte. And man, the roster has been there's been a little bit of a transfusion of transfers, but they've taken a lot of the same players that were key guys in 20 and 21 when they were combined 5 and 18. And those are the same players that are their best players when they're 14 and 5 under Mike Elko in a year and a half. That's something that sometimes you can't wrap your head around it. Sometimes you can. I mean, Dwayne Carter was a good player. We knew Dwayne Carter was a good defensive tackle in 20 and 21. He was just not on a good defense. The same thing could be said for Shaka Hayward, who was the middle linebacker last year. They've got a bunch of guys like Riley and Riley's class where they were way down the depth chart in 21. Brandon Johnson, their nickel, I think is their best defensive player. He played something like 90 snaps in 2021. They've barely been able to get him off the field. He's so valuable for him the last year and a half. It's a really nice mix of a roster. I think if any coach could draw up the ideal situation of taking over a team, I don't think the ideal situation is what Colorado did, where you just have 100% transfers. I don't think the ideal situation is I'm blanking on somebody that has taken over a program and not used the transfer portal, at least to some extent. But that I don't think is the right recipe unless it's a winning program and there's a smooth transition of power there. But yeah, it's really hard to argue that this isn't the ideal way to build a program and kind of turn things around quickly.
So we'll get to that injury, and you mentioned your tight end 9 receptions this year. No, so we can't address that injury, but I think people may want to first hear about, of course, Riley Leonard. So here we are, 62% completion percentage. 3 touchdown passes, 1 pick. That doesn't speak in any way to, obviously, his threat on the move, and then also his leadership of this football team. So first and foremost, do we have any indication? I know you don't have an answer for me because nobody does and would going into this game in regards to his availability, but what are your best indicators as to the possibilities?
Best indicators. I mean, it will have been a week ago when we get to Saturday night, but before the game against NC State, he's on the field. At least to me, from the press box, he looked like he was moving without a noticeable limp. He looked like he was fluid in taking steps. Now we're talking about a guy who's just playing catch with teammates. Like he was making one-handed catches in the end zone. It's not like he was taking 3 and 5 step drops and making sure the ball was out on time. It's not like he was facing a rush as if he was lining up against Jared Verse and trying to get out of the way. That's that kind of stuff. You just can't tell looking at a guy in warmups when he's not going to play in the game. But I do think there's a legitimate chance he plays in this game. I think that the off week helped. I mean, we're talking about a game that he injured it about 20 days ago at this point, 19 days ago. So it's in the rear view. It's a matter of whether he's healthy or not. It boils down to being that simple. There's no thought to, well, they beat NC State with the backup. They can wait a week. They don't think about it as if, Duke has 3 games left pretty much that are going to determine whether they get to Charlotte or not, as long as they take care of business in their other ACC games. And this is the first of 3. So you would kind of think this is the game that they have the most margin for error. It's against the best team, and the team that if Florida State wins this game, they're very, very likely, as if they're already very likely to be in Charlotte at the end of the year. But Duke still has to go to Louisville and go to Carolina, the other 2 ranked teams in the ACC, and play there. And those come in the next month. So this is a grueling stretch coming up for Duke. And it's kind of weird to think about, you're playing a top 5 team. This might wind up being the least important game of those 3. Because if you lose this one, you can still win the next 2 and be in Charlotte. I say all that. I don't think that's the way they approach it. I think if Riley's healthy, he plays. If he doesn't play, then he's not healthy yet, and you go to hoping he's back for Louisville next week.
Yeah, and maybe the least important as well for these reasons, and maybe you were alluding to these, that Leonard's going to be the least healthy for this game, so why not save him if you don't feel completely confident to get him back on the field against that kind of talent. And then number 2, they're going to be the biggest underdog in this game than all the other ones. So why not go after the winnable games? Now, certainly anybody associated with Duke should not be conceding a loss here by any stretch, but the odds are obviously stacked against them to a certain extent. It's their first big road test, and they played the two marquee games, of course, at home against Clemson and Notre Dame. So you got to look at Henry Beelan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yep, that's right.
Hitting 4 of 12. And so obviously nobody's going to be too wowed by that in regards to in and of itself of a box score, but obviously they didn't need him against NC State. The defense took care of the rest. What is that drop off between Riley Leonard and Henry Beelan? What style of quarterback is he? And there can also be a thought, and we see this commonly, where maybe a backup quarterback pressed into duty doesn't look so good that first time out, but after getting full first team reps for another week, knowing he's going to start and be the guy, that there is some significant improvement that next time out.
Yeah, the first word when you talk about Henry is raw. He's just, I kind of think of him as David Cutcliffe's last great quarterback project, because he is a second-year guy. He was part of the class that stayed on through the coaching change. He's 6'3", 215, 220 with a huge arm. The quote that we got from the offensive coordinator, Kevin Johns, in fall camp was, Henry got to Duke and he could throw the ball 70 yards without much effort. He's got a cannon. It's just been a matter of turning him into a P5 quarterback and getting him to do the little things, work on footwork, work on, quicker release, all the fine tuning that happens when, maybe this comes off as a little Southern influenced, but Henry came from New York City. I kind of think that part of why he's so raw is because of where he comes from, and because it's a place that they're not able to play football throughout the year as much as they are in the South. But we saw how strong his arm was just a little bit. The double move that he hit with Jalen Calhoun was a great throw for the touchdown. The throw before that, there's only 4 completions, so it's not like I have a lot to go on, but the throw before that was a nice crossing pattern on the run, I believe. He can do some of the same things Riley does. It's just that he doesn't do them as consistent, and he doesn't do them as well as Riley. With Riley, you're going to get an elite runner for a quarterback compared to some running backs too. So you're missing that in the drop-off. You're missing a guy who's in his second year as the starting quarterback and has been through a full season of topsy-turvy games, late game situations, everything that Riley does as a situational quarterback, you lose when you go to the backup. And that's going to be natural for just about everybody in college football.
With or without Riley, this would still be the case. But of course, without him, this team, just on the surface, it appears to be just a massive challenge here, going on the road, backup quarterback against a more talented roster. But Duke is used to doing this. So now they take on Florida State. And what would be, let's say Beelan's a quarterback, or, you can lay out 2 different scenarios if it's that much affected by Riley versus having, Beelan be the guy. What is the path to victory? What does a Duke victory look like, and who would factor in on both sides of the ball?
I think no matter who the quarterback is, it's got to be the first time that an opponent holds Florida State under 30 points. I don't know that the recipe for this game for a Duke win is, 38-35 or 35-31, anything in that realm. I don't see that playing out. I think a Duke win is more of 20-17 or 17-14. And that's going to be tough. I mean, Florida State has a 6th-year quarterback who's dynamic. They've got alien receivers. They've got a running back who's hitting his stride. I mean, you can go on and on about how good they are, but Duke's defense has been really good. one of 4 defenses in the country that's allowing less than 10 points a game, and their contemporaries are the 3 in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. So it's got to be on defense first for Duke, I think. I'm not asking for a shutout. I'm not even really saying that they should hold them to their average. Duke gives, I think it's 9.8 points a game. So I would say Duke has a chance if they hold Florida State in that 17 to 24 point range. Once it gets past there, I'm just not sure Duke can keep up. It sounds harsh. It does, but it's just, you look at what Florida State has and you start trying to match the pieces up, and it seems like Duke has to have a good defensive game. And then offensively, I think, as if it's going to be Henry Beelan, you're kind of asking him to do the same thing he did last week, just a little more often, which was hit the throws that he needed to make. You need to hit the double move when your best receiver gets their corner to bite, and he hit that throw. You get an interception that puts you at the other team's 8-yard line. You need to score a touchdown there, and they score a touchdown on the first play with a nice throw over the top to the tight end. So he'll be asked to make more plays. Like he threw 1 pass in the entire second half of a 3-touchdown win last weekend. I cannot see that situation playing out again. But if it's Henry, it's going to be, please just do the things we ask you to do. If it's Riley, it kind of opens up the possibilities there. It opens up, I think, more quarterback run. Henry's a capable runner, but like I said, Riley is a better runner. You can do a few more things offensively. You can get a little more risky with deep shots, downfield passes, and at the end of the day, also it's, I say all this, Duke, even with Riley, has been a running football team. Like, they want to run the ball down your throat. They want to wear you down. They want to be able to beat you in the fourth quarter. That's what they did against Clemson. That's what they did Northwestern. That's what they were on the verge of doing against Notre Dame. It was just that 1 4th and 16 scramble by Sam Hartman. So it's an interesting matchup. It is a tall test, but it's also one that I think Duke, if they stick to that recipe of keeping the score lower and shortening the game, I think it's winnable.